I was really. Oh, okay.
We'll only go till 11:30, so there'll be plenty of time to chat before seven names.
We'll be chatting there too.
Yeah. So Ramjoo's Diaries, everybody, from the beginning of the book.
Beautiful cover. I haven't seen that cover. That is lovely. Oh.
Yeah. I assume that's Baba's tomb, and of course it wasn't built when Ramjoo's Diaries, when he wrote them.
I don't think that's not the tomb. I think that's the mosque at what is Imampur. I don't think that's the tomb.
Okay.
Proportion of the dome is not right.
Everybody's favorite Baba picture, pretty much. Ramjoo's Diaries, 1922 to 1929, a personal account of Meher Baba's early work by Ramjoo Abdullah. Edited by Ira J. Dietrich. Manzili Meme, 1922 to 23. Arangown and Tours, 1923 to 25. Sobs and Throbs, 1927 to 29. And the Prem Ashram Boys supplement, which we already read. And I guess the copyright's by Sufi Reoriented, Walnut Creek, California.
Did we finish the
We did. We finished the supplement last week, Betty. Yeah.
What are we doing now?
We're doing the beginning of the book, part 1 and part 2.
Oh.
I've explained it a couple of times, but maybe you were busy with the kitty cat or something. That the supplement of Ramjoo's diary held the bios of the Prem Ashram Boys, some of them, and I just discovered that this book, Ramjoo's Diary, also contains Sobs and Throbs. So Sobs and Throbs is part of this book too.
Wow. Oh, and the Prem Ashram.
Yes. So you see the contents. Part 1 is Manzili Meme. Part 2, Arangown. There's some notes and biographies. And then here I turn the page. What do we have? Sobs and Throbs.
Oh, interesting.
Again.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The first chapter of Manzili Meme, I wonder, we were reading, Marvin, we read The Silent Word, Francis Brabazon, a book.
So acknowledgements, I acknowledge with thanks permissions for reprint given to me by Francis Brabazon for Stay with God and The Quest by Adi K. Irani. G.L. Pawar's diary, don't know that name. Do you know it, Betty?
No.
Okay. K.J. Dastour's biography, the evil K.J. Dastour, remember him?
Yeah.
Of Meher Baba, and Meher Baba Journal by Nasherwan Anzar, Glow International by Phyllis Frederick.
Whoa,
that's The Awakener. By Erwin Luck, Dr. Farhad Shafa. Those were the supplements of the Prem Ashram bios, by the way, Erwin Luck and Farhad Shafa. And Anne Breen, oh, well, here we have it, for interviews with the Prem Ashram Boys, in later life. And by Lawrence Ryder for the photographs of Meher Baba. My grateful thanks to all those who so lovingly helped in bringing out this book, especially to Sharon Parker, who typed the complete manuscript and helped in so many additional ways. To Barbara Smith for additional typing. To Benjamin Wells for proofreading and copy editing the manuscript. To Tracy Craig for proofreading. To Adi K. Irani, who so graciously translated the words and poems appearing in various Indian dialects in the diaries. And most importantly, to Murshida Ivy O'Deuce, without whose unfailing guidance, love, support, effort, and wisdom, this book would not be. Signed, Ira G. Dietrich. Your nice picture of Ramjoo Abdullah in the 1920s. Marvin, could you begin reading for us? Unmute and begin reading.
First, the gathering of his disciples, those men marked out by the round of time and God's grace, to be finished with time, to erase from their hearts, through perfect service, self-delusion of self. His testing them by admonition, changes of food, fasts, changes of habitat, bringing in extremes of climate, long miles in the dusty roads, repeating the name on each breath and each step, testing them, smelting the ore of them, so that the gold of them might shine as satellites to the gold of his sun, so that each one, cooked of his rawness, became a pliant hand or foot or eye or ear of God in his work. By Francis Brabazon, The Quest, 1958. Mayor Baba, in compassionate foreknowing of our passions, to know every detail of his life, directed Abdul Karim, a little smaller, please. Abdul Karim Abdullah, called Ramjoo, to keep a diary of the first years of his avatarhood. The diary extends from January 23, 1922 to January of 1925, covering 4 distinct periods. 1, the gathering and wooing of the Mandali, the intimate disciples, January 1922 to late May 1922. 2, there was a period of nearly a year of strict discipline and fixed routine, May 21, 1922 to April 14 of 1923. 3, then followed a similar period of more freedom in petty affairs, but with physical hardships and constant change, and under the impression of a fixed period, April 14, 23 to January 20 of 24. And now, and 4, now there is no limit to the time, place, and circumstances. Under which one is to keep company with Baba. Complete surrender is the order of the day. The first period, the wooing and gathering of the disciples, is not chronicled in detail in the diary because during that period, Ramjoo himself was just coming to Baba and had intermittent contact. To give a flavor of this time, I turn to Francis Brabazon, Baba's poet, to whom Baba gave an unequaled ability to weave Baba in words. Now he began to gather his disciples. It was one of these who first called him Baba, Meher Baba, or compassionate father. Some felt his light in their hearts and came. Some picked up the hint from Babajan and Maharaj, for these masters were now openly declaring him. He is now capable of moving the world at a sign from his finger, quote unquote. I have given the key of my treasure to Merwan. Do whatever he tells you, unquote. Some he drew directly to him, using the patience of a master lover, flattering their whims, widening gradually the space in their hearts to receive his love, playing upon the flute of their hearts till their souls' ears became enamored of his music, drawing ever more closely the net of love about them and pulling them in from the terrible ocean of conditioned existence, where they swam with the millions other fishes of us bright-hued or dull. One who had been his schoolfellow and was unaware that the universes and the wonders of the six planes lay at his feet, Baba greeted in well meeting, left the veil across his eyes, and resumed the friendship at its former level, indulged mutual inquiries regarding episodes and incidents, and engaged in discussions on philosophy, in which subject his friend had become adept. Left the veil and led him on, as a hunter veils the quarry with security. Then suggested that he himself sweep out each morning the small hospital he owned. He did, and within 6 months had swept away his practice. And was free to follow God. So God plays out the little plays of men. If it's worth a consummation, it's worth a wooing. The sudden sun burns on the west of the ridge, but on an east slope draws up the plants to grow gradually. Like the chap who had two valuable pots, dirty. One he gave to one man to clean, the other to another man. One back the next day, shining, but the temper gone out of the metal. The other returned after 40 days of careful cleaning, also shining and useful. It takes time to scour pots or grow tomatoes. It takes a lot of time to clean out a man's heart and grow love in him, so that as well as being bright with God, he can be useful to men. Love's claiming of another lover also followed an excursive course. At this time, this one said, I used to visit a friend's house where we young men discussed everything under the sun. One night there was a new face. No one paid particular attention to him, but gradually he seemed to become the focal point of the gatherings, and it was his say that was granted. Merwan says this. Merwan says that. I got sick of hearing his name. But incidents occurred which puzzled my intellect and nagged intelligence for answer, as on a boat excursion. When we went ashore on an island, it was noon, and being a Muslim, I went off and found a secluded spot and offered my prayers. When I got back, Merwan was grumbling that we all had left him. One goes off and offers prayers, another goes fishing. None of us had said what he had intended doing. I found I was always thinking of him. I told him one day I was going on a train journey. He said it was a coincidence that he was going on the same train. Soon after we started, he said gently, ask anything you like of me. Long life, wealth, fame, and I will see that you get it. But the better thing would be to make up your mind to do whatever I tell you to do. My mind was made up. I have followed this man now for 30 years and obeyed him. But another, as a boy, when sick, needed only a few visits to wonder at a kindness greater than his parents. And when again well, asked his father's permission to give up his life for him. But his father saw no good in this man and forbade it. But in Baba, the boy had seen his true father. So he saluted his father and went to him. Another, but with his father's blessing, left his home, set in desirable gardens, and gave up his life to him. All this came from Stay with God, pages 23 and 24.
Thank you, Marvin. Marvin, could you uh, assign the next reader, because I can't see, I can only
Sure.
see this screen at it. I'm on my phone.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Gail, would you like to read, or Betty?
I can't read at scale. I'm wrapping presents, but I'm listening.
I'll read, sure.
And I'm on my phone, so it's too tiny. Thanks.
Fine, that's good, that's
Okay.
fine. Okay, Betty, go ahead, please.
Yeah. During this.
Go ahead, Ben.
During this period, Baba held out before the gathering.
Betty, did you mute yourself?
No? Are we good? No?
I
Can you?
could hear Betty. I can hear Betty.
Yeah, I can hear fine.
All right.
Oh.
Okay. During this period, Baba held out before the gathering disciples the hope, nay, the promise of spiritual advancement and spiritual experiences. The indirect hints of Baba that he has a circle of certain numbers of persons with whom he has connection since the day of beginning, and that this certain number of persons will in the near future get real knowledge and experience of truth, has set most of us guessing as to the identity of this lucky number. Here was an ideal life painted before our imaginations, which under ordinary circumstances we dare not think upon. It is the connection again that will make me share this infinite treasure among 12 of my circle in the near future. January 26, 1922. Although he said 12 were the all-important members of the circle, yet the circle had really 14 members, while there were 14 more as shadows of the original 14. Thus, in all, there were 28 in the circle. The originals, he said, will become just like the Master himself, and so will get one with God, while the shadows will only see God. Yet even seeing God was not a trifling matter. January 27, 1922. That these and similar hints were intended as promises was made entirely clear in the stamped agreement signed by the Mandali on October 18, 1922. We, the undersigned, in full possession of our senses, of our own free will, and accord, hereby agree not to leave Meher Baba under any circumstances from the 1st of November 1922 to the 25th of April 1923. We also agree to stay with him regardless of any family events such as the death of any nearest relation, friend, or parents. After the lapse of the said period, Meher Baba binds himself to fulfill the promises which he has already verbally agreed to before the 10th of June, 1923. If any of us fails to stay with Meher Baba under any trying circumstances, then he is not responsible for carrying out the promise given. Gradually, as the disciples grew in maturity in Baba's training, the promise of advancement, the inducement of achievement and gain, began to unveil itself as an intermediate palliative necessary to the disciples in the youth of their discipleship, to be discarded when no longer necessary. January 20th, 1924, the promises were discarded. Whatever hopes and expectations Baba had held before us as going to happen and fructify by the 28th February 1924 were now considered to be all a failure. Consequently, if we felt to have passed the last 2 years in vain, as well as no longer taking Baba for what we believed him to be for so long, he said he was sorry and asked to be pardoned. Nay, further, we could do what we liked with him by way of punishment. But on the contrary, if we still liked to pull on longer with him, we could do so, but for an indefinite period and on unconditional unconditional terms, without any hopes and without the object of their definite fulfillment. By that time, the disciples had sufficiently matured in the work that none left Baba when the carrot was removed. After wooing and gathering the disciples, Baba marched them off to Bombay, where they lived together for 10 months in the Manzalimim. During this period, Baba imposed very strict discipline, controlling every aspect of the disciples' lives. It appeared that Baba, having severed the disciples physically from their home environment and commanded all their time, was going to build the foundation of their new life by prescribing every mote of sand in the new edifice. First, this was accomplished by a set of explicit orders. The 7 special orders. 1, to follow to the letter the spiritual instructions given by me. 2, to keep or break any special connection with one or more than one from the company or otherwise that I order. 3, to totally abstain for 12 months from intoxicating drinks or substances, as well as sexual intercourse, except when allowed with legal wives. To eat, drink, and dress according to the residence system, to avoid fish, flesh, and eggs under any circumstances. 5, to be present in the bungalow premises from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., barring accidents and mishaps. To follow faithfully the external duty given to each. 7, under no circumstances to give up my company, even if you find the whole world turn against me, except when ordered to do so. N.B. If any one of the above 7 orders is intentionally broken by anyone who binds himself to my orders, I shall lock myself up in my room alone, avoiding completely all food, drink, and company, which please note, June 7, 1922.
That probably should have been MB.
These 7 special orders were complemented by a network of verbal orders, which were eventually reduced to 28 and codified as follows, December 28, 1922. Rules to be observed in addition to the 7 principal orders. Baths to be number 1, baths to be taken daily. Extra baths are allowed after haircuts. 2, 1 hour between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. is reserved every morning for cricket or any such game. Members attending duties are exempted. 3, rooms to be cleaned once in a day by the occupants. 4, dining hall, top hall, and back compound are not to be treaded on with shoes. As far as possible, shoes or sandals may be avoided in the bungalow. 5, entering the bungalow latrines is strictly prohibited unless the wooden sandals supplied for the purpose are put on. 6, no one should enter anyone's room without the permission of at least one of the occupants. 7, ringing of the bell means the prompt attendance of members in the dining hall, except the 5 o'clock bell in the morning, which indicates the starting of morning prayers. 8, the respective food or clothing should not be given or exchanged by members among themselves. 9, eating less than full satisfaction is strictly prohibited. Report should be made in case of inability of eating even in spite of hunger, and in case of no appetite after accepting the food. 10, any unfavorable change in the health should at once be reported. Wow, that's stringent. Wow. 11, books, magazines, newspapers, and others' letters must not be read. 12, while out on duty, More than 2 annas should not be spent on drinks, and money should not be kept in possession while off duty. 13. Beating anyone under any circumstances is strictly prohibited, even in cases of self-defense. Wrestling and boxing are prohibited. 14. Lies, abusive language, and ill feeling towards one to the point of breaking my order are not allowed. 15. Visits to relations are not allowed unless permitted. 16. Letters are not to be posted unless previously sanctioned. 17. Permission is to be taken before going out. 18. In order to avoid impure actions, even a touch to anyone, while the mind is occupied with passionate thoughts, is strictly prohibited. Vulgar stories or passion-exciting topics must be avoided. 19. Touching any young women except one's own mother or sister should be avoided. 20. Eating food not cooked in the mansil or any eatable from outside must not be eaten unless otherwise ordered. 21. Any action indicating lust or passion should at once be reported. 22. Shaving and haircutting are allowed on Thursdays and Sundays before 12 a.m. 23. No report should be made for any breach of orders except in cases where asked to do so. 24. None should have entered the office of the manager, R.K. Irani, would that be Rustam? I don't know, of the Circle and Company, except with the manager's permission, and his writing table should not be touched during his absence in his office. Adi is appointed as vice manager. 25. Ears should be kept covered before going to bed, either by putting in cotton or tying a piece of cloth. 26. Everyone must sit down while drinking, and plates should be removed after every meal by the members themselves. 27. Bathrooms should not be used as urinals. 28. Falling at the feet of Meher Baba is strictly prohibited.
Thanks, Betty.
Wow.
I think I heard Mayor Kiran's voice.
Yes, yeah,
Please continue, Mayor.
thanks. The overpowering dominance of Baba's discipline was keenly felt by the Mandali. Baba's words and orders ought to be followed to the letter. For instance, if one is washing his face and has applied soap all over it, and if he is called just then, he must report to Baba at once in the same condition at the pain of a great storm. Similarly, if one is asked to stand up, he should remain so until further orders. Or when ordered to sleep, one should try to do so where he is without going to his room. Then, besides the 7 orders, there are hosts of unwritten but standing orders for following the commonest daily routine, all at certain fixed times, such as sleeping, eating, playing, writing, going out for business, etc., etc. One feels as if there is hardly scope left to use one's own willpower, since almost everything is to be done under orders and with permission, and that too with a mechanical regularity and precision. Just a minute's chaff and the unfortunate member is sure to pass a bad hour. June 15, 1922. For the first time today, the element of physical labor is introduced into the terms of our simple mental imprisonment in the manzil. Imprisonment because, despite all the physical comforts, the network of orders and instructions leave hardly a free breathing space in this commodious bungalow, September 29, 1922. The sense of being without free breathing space was rendered positively claustrophobic when Baba revealed gently but unmistakably through a series of incidents that he was omniscient, that he knew everything, that any member wished, thought, or did everywhere and at every moment. There was no escape. For example, for several days, Baba put up a notice on the board that an impure action had been committed on the premises. Then Baba put up the following two notices. Unless the culprit confesses his fault concerning impure action within 3 days, he shall leave the bungalow. Only 1 day has remained in which to confess the fault concerning impure action. Otherwise, I leave the bungalow. It was almost taken for granted that the whole affair was made up with some different object in view by Baba. When suddenly he confronted Mehboob with the guilt to the utter amazement of all. At first, Mehboob denied all knowledge, but Baba gave him clear details about the particular part of the premises where the action was committed, the circumstances under which it happened, and even the third party outside the mandali concerned in the affair. It was as if Baba himself had a look at the incident, although when Mehboob made a clean breast of it, he admitted to have committed the action when Baba and the mandali were not in or near the premises. December 6, 1922. Sometimes Baba was exquisite tact, gentleness, and love helped the mandali adhere to the rules. I, Dr. Ghani, sat by Baba, chafing his hands, and as the time given to me was approaching near, I was at a loss to understand how to know whether it was 1:30 a.m. or not. I thought if I don't go away at that given time, his order will be broken. And if I get up, his sleep will be disturbed. Such were the thoughts running in my mind, when to my great relief and surprise, Baba moved in bed and opening up his eyes, asked me to see what time it was. I got another surprise. It was exactly 1:30. When I informed this to Baba, he asked me to put out the lamp and go. February 5th, 1923. At times, Baba, when confronted with breaches of discipline, or even for no apparent reason at all, would become extremely angry and abusive, even physically, with the disciples. Baba gave an interesting explanation of both situations. One, after subjecting Adi to a tirade of chastisement in front of the mandali for some breach of discipline, Baba explained, when all had dispersed, Baba asked Adi not to feel for or brood over the humiliation he was subjected to in the presence of all. He said it was one of the ways of cleaning away the guilt of the guilty party by passing the person concerned in some such trying and exciting ordeal. March 4th, 1923. 2. Apparently referring to situations where he created a storm for no apparent reason, he said, when a master is in the most perfect and peaceful internal state, or that some internal work is nearing completion and success, there is sometimes an overflow of the internal state externally. The external outburst is a shadow of the internal perfect state and is quite the opposite, and thus takes the form of abusive language, beating, etc. But whoever receives these is a fortunate man, since these abuses and beatings work a good deal of benefit for him, especially in external affairs. January 31, 1923. It is interesting to note that the threatened or stated punishment for breaches of discipline by the mandali was twofold: that Baba would punish himself by fasts, etc., and that Baba would deny the mandali his company for some time. One can so clearly see the master psychologist at work. Yet, while the discipline and rules were all prevailing, leaving no choice as to the slightest detail, Baba paradoxically instituted regular meetings where all the mandali were to express their opinion and vote on manzil activities. When all were present upstairs today in the evening, Baba broached the subject of setting aside an hour or two daily for all the members to get together in the evening to discuss and decide various questions of the domestic as well as recreational life in the manzil. All favored the idea. And some rough preliminary rules were formed for the conduct of business therein. First of all, after much discussion, the meeting was decided to be called a Gatta tavern. Everyone from the mandali was decided as having the right to attend, take part, and give votes equally in the proceedings of the Gatta. Dr. Gani was selected as a secretary to note down and keep records of the proceedings, while Baba himself was declared to be the chairman. Everyone was asked to take keen interest in the proceedings and give one's own opinion freely without being led by others' words, leanings, and considerations. All were to speak one after the other and with the permission of the chair to avoid the technical gatta becoming one in the real sense of it. I think I'm okay. Yeah. And with the permission of the chair to avoid the technical gatta becoming one in the real sense of it, that is a place of chaotic humdrum. To solicit permission to speak, one should lift his hand upwards without making any sound, and to begin speaking only when the chair grants the permission. Thus, the time was passed very interestingly today in witnessing the institution of local self government being inaugurated in the autocratic atmosphere of the Manzil, January 3rd, 1923.
Thanks, Mayor. Mayor, could you choose the next reader because I can't see them, of course.
Yeah, actually, I have my father today. Let me see if he can read little bit. Let's see if it works or not. Let me know. But I would like him to also read little bit if that is okay.
Nice.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in April,
Hello.
in April, you can chadu in April 1923. Chadu.
Ramoji while at home at
In April.
Mm.
From here in April 1923.
in April 1923, Baba ended the first phase of his training of the Mandali, which with the closing of the Manjil and dispersal of the Mandal to their homes for a month's vacation. Ramoji, while at home at Lonavala, on his vacation, noted the changes. April 1st, 1923, it has long since been decided by Baba to leave the Manjil for good in a few days. And after Rustum's marriage, which is to take place in the next month, to stay at Arangan near Ahmednagar under quite changed conditions. While a limited number of members only who will be willing to undergo the more difficulty next term. Whatever be the future program, the strict disciplinary period of staying in the Manjil and the utmost strict routine quite aloof from the external world was at the end, with the prospects of a very active and lively future. So much so that already as per Doctor's Pun on same Arangan, it is generally referred to as Hirangan, HY, place of hardship by the Mandali on account of the hardship and difficulties that are predicted by Baba to fall to the lot of those who will be with him at that time. Hereafter, members sent to their respective homes or out of home, Bombay are to observe the following special orders 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7. General orders 1, 9, 13, 14, 18, 19, and 25. For those mandali that Baba said not call back for the next two phases, Baba's orders kept a tight clamp on basic outlines of their lives by leaving them free to make their own choices. 23 introduction. As to detail, while living in the world, Baba is said to be externally far away or to be nearby does not make any change in the spiritual working. So long as one followed and remained under these instructions he has with him. I decided to stay with Baba's preferred it under the circumstances, though I believe the mind of perfect masters to be universal and thus omnipresent, May 7, 1923, for those mandali that were called back, who varied the number from to our 20th times. Baba began a period in which he served them progressively from any ties to familiar environment, routine, caste, or upbringing until they come to live day by day under these orders, looking only to him for guidance and sustenance of every kind. From mid-April 23 to January 94, Mandali made 4 short stays in Arangan, picking up the deserted army premises and doing physical labor beneath their caste status. They also made 4 train trips through North and Central India, 1 boat trip, 2 major foot journey, carrying their own belongings and sleeping under the stars, as well as 2 fairly extended stays in Bombay. One of the foot journey, namely from Aurangabad to
Navsari.
Nasari, July 1st, 1923 to July 6, 1923, is especially remarkable because it seems to suggest of new life. June 23, 1923, final message. A discussion took place in the afternoon between Baba and
The mandali.
under the Mandali, when all were present, the following points were agreed by all after careful consideration and mature deliberations. First, those who accompany Baba for touring on foot to under any circumstances by their own free and will this on this own of responsibility. Further, as a proof of this, all these agreed to sign on a stamped paper and to the effect. Number 2, all are agree not to leave Baba under any circumstances before tour ends, but have also agreed that whenever anyone more is ordered to do so, they should leave for whatever place ordered to. Number 3, as Asthma persisted to join the party, Asthma persisted to part in spite of the repeated performance given to him by Baba at this own responsibility and any cost or risk. It is decided after a lengthy discussion that Asthma should accompany the Mandali. None of the Mandali expect any supernatural acts from
Baba.
Baba. Baba is helped under the circumstances even in the case of wasting away. One more of the Mandali has been said by Baba to happen in the future. after noting Baba's explaining that soon he will be in such a spiritual stage that he will be quite helpless and might have to suffer even at the hands of more yogis and advanced souls with internally and externally has been case with C. Maharaj Swami Vivekananda and Gahush Ali Shah.
Thank you, Mayor's Papa.
Uh,
So the next, I see Mahu. Mahu, are you able to read?
Yes, I can read. Good morning
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
and good evening. Signed, stamped agreements between Baba and the Mandali reappear constantly. One day he gave a clue as to their meaning and effects. Quote, when questioned about the sanans of vilayat, means confirmation of a spiritual charge in relation to Hazrat Ahmed Ali Sabir, Baba said, that is one of the ways of giving charge externally. The last 4 months that I was with Maharaj at Sakuri, I had to externally take the charge in writing. The stamped paper agreements written here by me, although not so very important as compared to the sanans of vilayat, is still not without meaning too. This is in February 8, 1923. The last phase of the training period covered by Ramjoo's diary was initiated in January 1924 during a stay in Bombay. As already mentioned earlier in this introduction, at that time Baba announced that all his promises as to realization, advancement, and experiences were off. Quote, the sugar coating of quick results was at last off the bitter peel of spiritual research. In quote, January 20, 1924. No longer was the Mandali's commitment for a definite term on explicit conditions, but thereafter only those could keep company with Baba who were willing to surrender completely and indefinitely. This is January 20th, 1924. Since Baba emphasized that failure to meet the new conditionless conditions would not affect their spiritual advancement in any way, so long as they followed his instructions wherever they were, because of their spiritual connection with him from the past. It suggests that these new conditionless conditions were the necessary basis for any of the Mandali to carry on as instruments for Baba's work. During this last phase, there was a short trip to Persia, 1 month and a half of hard labor at Rangoon, 1 month's stay in Quetta, 1 week in Karachi, 1 week in Bombay, and then most of the Mandali were dispersed to be recalled in January 1925 when Baba began his first great stay at Mehrabad. This diary contains many fascinating discourses on the path and God, as well as vignettes of Baba's working, a veritable feast. A veritable feast for the discerning, well beyond the scope of this introduction. I find it very interesting However, that Baba denoted only two orders as called spiritual orders. One, getting up at 4 a.m. and attending morning prayers from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. Attending the places of worship every day according to respective religions, or carrying out other individual spiritual orders, end quote. This is in December 28, 1922. The specified morning prayers were then between 5 to 6 a.m., all should engage themselves in repeating prayers according to their respective religions for some time, such as namaz for Muslims, kasti for Parsis, puja for Hindus, etc., and pass the major portion of the time repeating the name of the Almighty. These two according to their respective faiths, such as Allah, Yazdan, Ram, etc. But it is to be done mentally and while sitting in one fixed position. Although the repetition is to be carried on in the mind without moving the tongue or lips, the eyes should never be closed. This belongs to the line of study of yogis. With a spiritual aspirant, there is no closing of the eyes, nose, or mouth, and neither the external following of religious rituals in details. Once sitting in the position, one should stick to it throughout the period till the bell rings for breakfast at 6 a.m. without changing the place or position, and keep on repeating in the mind the divine name with a free heart without thinking of time, etc. Here all were asked to inform him as the name and position suitable to each of us respectively. The Muslim party naturally chose Ya Allah, the Zoroastrians Yazdan, and the Hindus Ram. Almost all selected varying positions to sit as per individual point of comfort and ease. After hearing the respective decisions, Baba said all are to stick to their selected names and positions for 10 months without change, and finally added, quote, "This is my first spiritual instruction of its kind, and therein fail not." October 1st, 1922. Preeminently, however, the diary is a charming chronicle by a young man, 23 at its outset, describing simply and at Baba's direction the daily events in the first 3 years of Baba's avatarhood. Ramjoo, named in accordance with the Muslim custom of no naming children born in the month of Ramadan, was born April 18, 1899 in Bombay. His mother died when he was 2 months old, so he was raised by his father and aunt. Perhaps because he was fearful of any harm coming to his only son, the father did not put Ramjoo in school until he was 12 years old, and that stay lasted only 1 year. Shortly thereafter, he went into business. He had a cloth shop at the time he came to Baba. He was reared amidst strict Muslim orthodoxy, and until coming under Baba's tutelage, felt pity and contempt for all non-Muslims. Despite his lack of formal education, Ramjoo was selected by Baba not only to keep this diary, but to author Sheri Meher Baba, his philosophy and teachings, and Sobs and Props, forming the second part of this book, as well as to handle many legal affairs for Baba. Ramjoo wrote this diary in English. In order to preserve its charming quality, I have restricted editorial changes to the absolute minimum necessary to make it understandable, generally retaining idiomatic Indian English. Ramjoo, apparently for convenience rather than linguistic accuracy, sprinkled the diary with many untranslated Indian words. Adi K. Irani, Baba's longtime secretary, who was himself at the manzil, has very kindly translated all these words and poetry. Only the English translation has been printed in the text, unless there was no exact English translation are included. The diary is supplemented by a chronology, notes containing explanatory background material, and a section giving brief biographical sketches of a number of the Mandali, many of whom are not well known in the West. This is by Ira G. Dietrich at Walnut Creek, California, June 1978. Of course, this part of Sufism reoriented in Walnut Creek.
Thanks so much, Amahu. And let's
My
stop
pleasure.
the recording.